Hello. Hello,
Hi.
Adam.
Hi.
Nice to have you in my studio.
It's great to be here.
And I guess I should probably tell everybody what we're doing. I'm interviewing Adam Olsen, who's the Green Party candidate for the upcoming provincial election in BC.
That's true.
And I met you a couple of weeks ago, and I went to
It's a kitchen table meeting.
Yeah, and I was like, who is this guy? And I want to talk to him about issues I have with health. And actually, I'm really thrilled. You're the first politician to get a signed copy of my book.
Oh, well, fantastic.
And
thank you.
The book is all about health and wellness and the importance of gyms in the community.
Yeah.
And I'm, as a personal trainer and former gym owner, that's kind of something that's near and dear to my heart.
Well, thank you. Congratulations on writing a book.
Yeah,
I have
thank
an author.
you.
My mom's an author, and I can't let this opportunity pass up to say how much I know goes into writing a book,
Mm-hmm.
and how much of you gets poured out onto these pages. So I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing.
And I'm really delighted that you have a copy. It's one of the visions I have, and one of the reasons I actually have a YouTube channel is to share adventures with people and talk about health and fitness and exercise and diet. But also, I'm concerned about the health of our community, and I feel that to really have a great society, we really need to be looking after our bodies. And also that we need a kinder, gentler, more healthier society for people to be happy and people to be fulfilled. And that's one of the visions I have for my life and for the community I live in. And I was really excited to hear your words around the kitchen table, because you really supported a lot of the vision I have. And I wanted to mention to my viewers that you've actually had a personal transformation of your own. You could be the before and after poster boy for a personal training magazine.
Well, actually, speaking of before and after photos, I have a sign from my last election, and it was my skinny picture. I remember, and I say that because I remember going through all of the photos that I had, and I'm like, okay, I need the photo which is the best version of me. And I actually don't believe that we should be, I don't believe in photoshopping. I do very little photoshopping. I'll filter my photos that you see on Instagram or on my YouTube, on my Twitter account or Facebook account. I'll filter them, but I won't. Even my professional headshots, I don't get done with any photoshopping, or very little photoshopping, because I want people to see the true representation of me. So, to make a long story short, I have one of my old 2013 election signs, and I'm like, whoa, oh, that was my skinny shot. Anyway, over the past year, I think carved off about 30 or 35 pounds.
Wow, that's just fantastic.
And it's a mixture of starting to walk, enjoying the spring mornings back in the spring of 2016, and then diet and nutrition, which is probably getting active and getting moving is really important, and it was a fantastic way to start. But what came after that was more attention to the details of what I'm eating.
And I'm so happy to hear that as a politician you recognize the value that you've been overweight, unhealthy, changed your lifestyle, appreciating very much what that did to you. You mentioned that you actually think better now. You feel better, you have more energy, and you think more clearly. And I think as somebody who's going to potentially be making policies that affect all of us, this is important.
Yeah, so it was like 30 pounds lighter all the way around. 30 pounds off of the physical self, but also the spiritual, emotional, and mental self. It definitely lightened every part of my life up. I felt a lot better, more confident, more confident moving amongst people, and then as well sharper, more acute. As a politician, there's very little time off. You're always working. If you're in public, you're working. When I was on municipal council, it was potholes in the road, or why didn't my street get plowed, which is, particularly probably a lot of people are talking about this winter. And in provincial politics, it's, why are the wait times so long, or why are my kids' teachers being locked out, or, you get those kinds of questions. And so no matter where you go in public, you've got to be on, and it's really important that you're comfortable with yourself and that you're confident and that you are sharp at any time, at all times. So for me, it was a very good thing. I was waiting for this election that we're now in the midst of, and I decided that I was going to take control of what I could take control of, and it started with my physical, and I didn't even actually realize until after I started to go down the journey of losing weight that it was going to be felt so deeply throughout the rest of my life.
I kind of look at governance, which is what you're doing. You're going to be in government to do governance, which I think some people don't even understand that really. You're going to be setting policies and principles by which we're all going to be living. Yeah. If people can't even govern their own health, it's hard to, really difficult for them to make really good decisions for the rest of us. And I think that's an issue that is coming up now more and more, and I'm so happy to see politicians stepping up to the plate, looking healthier, being fit. You see pictures of politicians out running or walking or making that effort, and I'm happy to see that. And I'm also happy that your party seems to really embody that healthy love of self, love of others, and love of the environment, because that's all connected as well. And you mentioned food, and of course farming. We've become very distant from where our food comes from, and I think that's affecting our health and our ability to think properly and sometimes make decisions that are good for us. Can you tell me a little bit about some of your thoughts on food and where it comes from?
Well, I mean, it's this place that we live in, Saanich, we're Salt Spring Island, but in the territory of Saanich, and the Cowichan people, Cowichan as well. 100 years ago, 100% of the food here was found right here, and as we've progressed through the century, our food has gotten further and further and further away from us, and so I think that food security is a huge issue. Making sure that we've got land that can produce food, making sure that we've got processing facilities close by, so that food that is grown, we can increase the shelf life of it, so that we can convince grocery stores to purchase more local food because they've got a stronger supply of it. And look, I think that what's most important is that we understand where our food comes from. Not only is our food coming from further and further away, but it's more and more processed. And I'm not a nutritionist, but the rawer the food that you can eat, the fewer hands that it has to go through, the less factories that it finds itself in, is going to be better quality. And so if you can shake the hand of the farmer at the local market or at the farm stand or even at the grocery store, you're only one step away from the food. I think that's the best case scenario. And so it's going to be important for local government people, Islands Trust people, and the provincial government to do everything they can to ensure that we've got food producing lands around the communities and where they're established.
I think that's absolutely essential to us being able to survive even as a species.
That's right. Yeah.
And when we talk about being fit and healthy and the healthcare budget sneaking up to being, in the next 10 to 20 years, more than 50% of the provincial budget will be allocated to healthcare, and people can't be healthy if they don't have access to good quality food. And not everybody understands that. So we really rely on our government people to make that happen for us. Right. How do you balance this need for development, for people need places to live, and access to housing that's affordable? How do you balance that with the needs of having farmland that's producing food? I mean, that's a really interesting question, isn't it?
It's a phenomenally difficult question to answer. I think that it's about priority setting at its essence. That yes, we do need to provide places for people to live, but another basic need of human beings is to eat. I think we all eat. I'm pretty sure we all eat.
And clean water.
And clean water.
Yeah.
And so we have to be reasonable with ourselves. We cannot allow the pursuit of money or the pursuit of to get in the way of what our needs are, what our basic needs are. And so as we're building communities, we need to make sure that we're building them smartly, and that the provincial government is providing local government people the tools that they need in order to be able to build strong, resilient, sustainable communities. And that includes providing access to clean water, but it also protecting food-producing lands and balancing that with developing housing options for people. And I think that over the past 20 years that we've got some of these priorities mixed up, and it's going to take some work for us, and it's going to take some leadership from the provincial government and from the MLAs that we're electing to show that leadership and to say, actually, we need to make sure that our communities are resilient, because with climate change and with a rapidly changing environment around us, we are going to need to be planning well and prepared, and that includes making sure that if any disaster or if weather event happens and we get cut off from our food supply, that we know where we're going to be fed and how we're going to be fed, and that is something that I think that we as a provincial government need to do a better job of.
I would agree with you. And when you're planning these communities, of course, as I mentioned in my book, one essential thing is the community centers where people can go to exercise.
Correct.
You know, where they have gyms that suit all ages, and pools and recreational activities that get people moving, socializing, being together. These are all important parts of building a community, and I feel sometimes it's lost, a little bit lost when we're just looking at money, and a lot of people want to be healthier than they are and to enjoy their life more than they do. And so I feel that healthcare funding and how we do handle healthcare has a lot to do with how we handle agriculture and housing, and it's all really mixed up together, isn't it?
Everything is everything's part of the same system. I mean, you can't separate it into three silos of environment, economic, and social. It's all one system. When you're making decisions, you've got to be doing the best you can to consider all of the different aspects of the decision that you're being asked to make, but you can't abandon a part of it and be a responsible decision maker. In my opinion, you have to be addressing each of these challenges as fulsome as possible. And as you mentioned, you know, we've got 40% of our provincial budget, or around 40% of our provincial budget, is healthcare, and the facilities that you pointed out are particularly important because it's the preventative and it's the wellness part of it. And like I said at the beginning of this, it's more than just being well physically; it's being well mentally and spiritually as well. And so this is something that the BC Greens have always promoted, and that is investments in prevention and wellness, recreational opportunities. Opportunities to be in nature and to benefit from, you know, the common spaces and often some of the best recreational opportunities are the ones that nature created, or that are in nature. So we can then go from there to deploying the healthcare budget to in a responsible way, providing people access to the healthcare practitioner that makes the most sense, not just everybody going to a GP. We need to make sure that the primary care that's being offered to people is the most appropriate. And in our society now, everybody goes to a GP to get everything, and then they, you know, get kind of triaged from there to somebody else. But I think that we can, with primary care facilities and primary care clinics or offices, we can do a better job of directing people to the type of care that they need, and that in the end that will be deploying the healthcare budget in a much more appropriate or a much more prudent manner.
I love that when I listen to you talk, what I really appreciate, and probably isn't brought up very often, but I am from Salt Spring, and there's a lot of love. You have a lot of love of what you're doing. You speak with a lot of love, and I feel like we're missing some of that in our society. Just being more loving to each other, and so I like being loving to ourselves by exercising, eating well, being loving to each other by treating each other really well, and being respectful to each other, and also loving our environment, because that's where we live, and that's where we nestle in and be and are who we are in our environment. and I'm impressed when I listen to you talk and I feel it in you, and I think a lot of people have become very jaded and cynical about politicians.
Yeah.
And I feel that that's kind of sad in a way, because when I meet someone like you, I realize what an important job it is and how important it is for all of us. And we need to consider not only what the person's saying, but how much love they have.
Well, politics in BC are very divisive. Very much a great big divide between the government and the opposition, and in fact, there's been quite an effort to drive those sides further and further apart. And what that's created is a very confrontational system.
Yes.
And I think that the BC Greens can play a role, a catalyst role in that. I think that we need to shift the entire conversation away from right and wrong, black and white,
Yes.
left and right, to a conversation of, well, actually, you mentioned it. I am running for a seat in government. It's a governance role. It's not a
Yes.
politics role.
It's a governance role.
Politics has taken over our government.
Yes.
And governing is very, very different than engaging in politics, because it's about making the most correct decision that you can. Being willing to admit that maybe the decision that was made wasn't the best choice, and going back to the drawing board and finding the best choice. These are all things that we do in our personal lives. They're all things that we hope our communities are run by. And unfortunately, our provincial government, it's been really about party interests pursuing power than it has been making the best decisions for our communities. And so we get decisions about healthcare, or about education, or about whatever that are more to try to poke a stick in the eye of our political opponent than they are to find the best solution.
And to find the most loving solution, the best solution, the one that serves everybody. And that's why it's just a joy to talk to you.
Well,
and I
enjoy being here.
It's fantastic, and I know you have to take off to another event, and I'm extremely impressed that you're jumping from island to island and all over our riding to tell people.
It's a great riding.
It's to tell people all about the Green Party and about yourself and your vision. Maybe you can just remind my viewers when the election is.
So the election's on May the 9th. There will be, I think the preceding Tuesdays will be advanced polling, advanced voting. You will be getting something in the mail telling you exactly where to go to vote. Each area that each neighborhood has got a specific polling booth to go to. And if you're not registered, please register. One of the great things about Saanich North and the Islands is we've got a citizenry that's very dialed in. And 7 out of 10 people voted in the last election. We want to drive that number up. We want to get 100% of people who are eligible to vote voting. That is very ambitious, but why not try to strive to be the most? And if you know that you're not voting, you can just go to Elections BC to get signed up to vote there. Or you can contact our office. AdamOlsen.ca is my website. You can get all the contact information there. You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. Those are all good ways to ask me the question, how do I vote? And we'll get back to you.
Thank you so much. And for anybody out there who wants to ask Adam a question that was not asked today, we had limited time, send me an email, sheenabowl65@gmail.com. I love to hear from you. And as my loyal viewers, I love to hear from you about anything that you have, comments, concerns. And thank you so much, Adam, for coming today and speaking to me.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.